And here we have it again, ladies and gentlemen. Rezolve AI down 3.8% today. Another very, very low volume sell off. What is happening? What do you need to know specifically about Rezolve and this broader market? We talked about it in the previous video. If you did not watch that, basically, the markets are crashing. The markets are freaking out. AI stocks and small caps are getting decimated left and right. Again, this is not a Rezolve specific thing. Most AI stocks are getting clapped right now. Okay. I think Wall Street is doing something that is pretty obvious. Okay. They're buying Mag 7. Hence, those stocks did well today. And they're selling the rest of this market. That makes sense if you are a hedge fund or institution. That is probably what you should be doing right now. Okay? If you have a fiduciary responsibility to protect your clients. Why? Because the government is doing government shit, keeping the government shut down. If you're a big money investor, you look at BLS data like gold. I look at it like silver at best. Okay? I think company earnings are the best way to evaluate this economy. And sure, are things perfect? No. Are they largely the same as they were before? Yes. Okay. But Wall Street, they don't have the BLS data, so they're having, mini heart attacks over there. Okay. They don't know their left from rights right now. Okay. They're blind. The blind is leading the blind on Wall Street. Okay. They don't understand how these things work on a deep degree like you do. Okay. So what they're doing is they're saying, okay, government shutdown, economy may be dramatically weakening, we may be going into a recession. So what are they doing? That's their narrative anyways. So they're going out, they're buying Mag 7 because Mag 7's the place to be if you have a recession. Like, that's obvious. And they're selling everything else. They're shorting everything else. The algorithms are freaking out. I think it's a little bit of a vigilante kind of thing happening. You've probably heard of bond vigilantes. Basically, that's a term that was coined back in the 70s and 80s, where it's basically where bond market investors would do things to enact change. Like if the bond market didn't like what the Fed did, and let's say the Fed cut rates, okay? What bond investors will do is they will start to sell bonds and say, to hell with this, I don't think you made the right move. They'll sell bonds, they'll drive bond yields up, even though the Fed just cut rates, right? Might drive them up dramatically. That sends a very clear signal, okay? That is, I guess, manipulation through money, okay? A little bit of that seems like it's happening right now. There's a little bit of, you won't reopen the government, so to hell with this. Trying to enact change that way and put some pressure on the government to reopen. At this point, that's the last big obstacle left for this market. The Fed last week was bullish. Hyperscaler earnings, AI, bullish. They all beat their numbers. They all raised capex budgets. All of that was good. Trump lowered tariffs on China, for Christ's sake. And the NASDAQ was down 1.5% the next day. Russell was down almost 2%. There's no rhyme and or reason why markets are behaving the way that they are behaving. Besides the government being shut down, is forcing some selling pressures. Okay, Wall Street is the blind leading the blind. So if you didn't know what's happening to markets, what's happening to Rezolve, that is it. Rezolve specifically is in a bleed out period, just like most other AI stocks right now and most other small caps because of this. Okay, these are low volume sell-offs. This is not like people are dumping their positions in Rezolve. This is, let me explain this the simplest way I possibly can. Okay, let's keep this one very simple. So if a stock goes up or down, it's not necessarily an indication of how many people are buying or selling. It's an indication of, are people willing to buy more, like at higher prices, or are they willing to sell at lower prices? Okay, so when you have a low volume sell-off, basically what you're seeing is people are just not as willing to buy. The selling pressure may be the same now as it ever was, but people are just not willing to buy as much. Okay, they're not willing to press the buy button as fast. So what happens? You get some selling that moves the stock a lot more, right? Imagine it if there was, 10 million shares trading out on the markets. Okay. 5 million were buy orders, 5 million were sell orders. Okay. That's 1-to-1 parity. But that doesn't mean the stock is going to be unchanged. Okay. It's really at the margin, right? Where the stock is at right now, $4.12. What are people doing around $4.12? Okay? Are they looking to buy at $4.12 or are they looking to sell at $4.12? You could have the stock fall 5% or 4% on a day like today with 1 million shares being sold. You could have the stock fall 1% on 50,000 shares on net being sold. Volume just tells you how many people are buying and selling the stock. Okay? There's not a lot of activity taking place in Rezolve right now. And I'm seeing this on a lot of other stocks. What is happening is right at the margin, you're seeing a little bit more selling than buying. Okay? People are not as willing to just pile in or start, to buy around the current price. There's incrementally more selling, even though the volume is really low. That can move the stock a lot, and that's why you're getting a 4% down day. But these low volume sell-offs are zero conviction. Okay, this is nothing like people are actually dumping out of their positions. That's not what's happening. Okay, I think a lot of it is algorithmic based as well. Now, we didn't have much news today for Rezolve, but Dan Wagner did share this post on X from Squid AI. Dan Wagner says, GMX's move to SQD validates Rezolve AI's acquisition thesis. Best-in-class multi-chain data performance is the foundation for agentic AI. Teams don't switch infra lightly. GMX did, and the gains with SQD are clear. Faster data to the app, smoother UI, lower infra across chains. This is the heart of our strategy at Rezolve AI, a modern data layer feeding intelligent agents. Great work, SQD team, XGMX, for the partnership. So this is something that really didn't even get like news today. Subsquid is a basically subsidiary almost of Rezolve. So SQD news is really not going to move Rezolve in the large part. But Dan Wagner, again, saying positive things about Rezolve is good, right? SQD does look like it was a solid addition to Rezolve, but the problem with Rezolve specifically is we get a lot of press releases, but 99% of them are not important. 99% of them do not move the needle for Rezolve. So we actually haven't had real news in a while that is bullish or bearish for the company. Like, we get a lot of press releases that really don't mean much at all. Okay, so hopefully we get one soon. The last post Rezolve made has 80 likes. It's about the Minthra partnership they have with Rezolve for search-based or image-based search. And I commented, said, can we get a PR for a contract? Okay. Has 116 likes, 6 reshares, a bookmark, and 3 comments. The whole post from Rezolve here has 80 likes. So hopefully Rezolve takes that as a bit of a message and can start to give us some of these contracts. Okay? Start to keep us informed with the day-to-day, bookings of the business. They like to keep us informed with everything else, but they don't share contracts ever. And I think that's also something that Wall Street is a little uneasy about. Good news is it's not going to take a lot of good news at all to get Rezolve to really skyrocket from here. You can also see the stock is hanging out right above its 100-day moving average. You would hope that holds as support. If it does not, then the 390 level is where this trend line is that should hold as support. If it doesn't, then you're really in a problem, because that's the trend line that connects the lows back in April of 2025. Okay, you would want to see that trend line hold support. You really want to see the 100-day moving average, this orange line here, hold support. If it doesn't, again, you're going to have a bit of a problem on your hands. But the low volume sell-off, okay, is not an indication of some kind of larger problem. Okay, it's market sentiment. There's not a lot of, buying pressure at the bid, which is kind of normal in a market that is being algorithmically sold off because of government shutdown issues and recession concerns, blah, blah, blah. You can see the RSI is also at 37.90. So when we do get the government reopening and or a contract, PR from the company, that is when things are going to materially change in a good way for Rezolve stock. Now, we have one option order today. It's a January 20th, 2028 $10 put with a break even of about $3.30 for about $215,000. To me, again, this looks like a lot of algorithmic trading activity, probably a bit of a hedging strategy in case things get worse in the markets here. If the government does not reopen soon, this situation could get worse. Now, we talked about this in the prior video, but essentially small caps are selling off, equal weight S&P is selling off. Where the buying pressure is in the headline S&P. It's really in your Mag 7 stocks. Okay? That is where all of, and really only, the buying pressure is. Even if you look at the percent of stocks trading above their 50-day moving average, you're back to the worst levels you've seen since April of 2025. Okay? Only 38.8% of stocks are trading above their 50-day moving average. It is a bloodbath under the surface of this market. And, Rezolve's just not going to be spared the rod as AI stocks and small caps sell off. It's going to take Rezolve down with it, unfortunately. Again, I do think the ingredients are here for a year-end rally. Bullish Fed, great earnings, Trump lower tariffs on China, the trade situation has really calmed down. The fact of the matter is, kind of like bond vigilantes, when they try to enact change, like certain things don't make sense. If the Fed cuts rates, why would bond yields skyrocket, right? That's the whole bond vigilante thing. They're trying to send a message. Well, investors are definitely trying to send a message to the Fed on one part. The other part is it makes a lot of sense why Mag 7 is doing well and small caps are doing poorly. If Wall Street is worried about a recession because the government shut down, then it makes sense to buy Mag 7 and sell small caps. But the fact of the matter is, the pieces of the puzzle are here for a pretty aggressive year-end rally once the government gets funded and finally eventually reopens, which will happen at some point. There's rumors and speculation and talks about the government opening on Wednesday or on Thursday, so we will see if that happens. That will be great news. Until we get a PR about a contract from Rezolve or something that's actually impactful for the company that is bullish, it's hard to see Rezolve or small caps in general rally in this environment. When Wall Street is fearful about a recession because of the government, because of politics, there's not a whole lot you can do. That's just a fact. But again, that's where it helps if you understand the companies you are investing in, right? If you understand the companies you are investing in, Rezolve is the cheapest AI stock on the markets today. If you really know your company, you wouldn't be panicking right now, okay? So if you're panicking a little bit, you really need to take a step back and say, hey, do I understand the companies I'm really investing in? Because if you don't, then you're not a happy camper right now, okay? Now, this is what a lot of people wanted to have discussed in this video as well. It comes from Raji. Says Rezolve and Amazon continued, where Rezolve and Amazon could partner in an even huger way. To end with, there is the notion out there that one of these large players could purchase Rezolve AI outright. Of course, there would be intense due diligence done on their part before even initiating a joint discovery process. My personal guess is that a complete buyout that is due diligence confirmed would target a 10 to 15x valuation discount to peers. I say this keeping in mind that based on future set, there is huge value with just Rezolve AI's intellectual property inherent in BrainPower LLM and other components of its stock. Okay, that's important. Just the large language model of Rezolve that Rezolve owns is likely worth far more than $1.3 billion. Okay, as a comparable, how much would it cost to build a large language model like Rezolve's? It's expensive. Okay, it's going to be very expensive, very difficult to do, and take some time. Okay, so it's hard to break down each component of Rezolve's business, but the large language model in and of itself is probably worth more than the whole company's value that Wall Street is, assigning it. Okay, so when I look at all of these things, obviously we want some news for Rezolve, but if you truly understand Rezolve, you're perfectly fine with what we're seeing right now. Okay, does it suck? Sure, it sucks. Okay, it sucks to see your portfolio go down even when you're correct in your assessments. You understand Rezolve is the cheapest AI stock. Like, you're like, why is the stock not going up? Sometimes you just can't help when the markets are panicking, and you just gotta wait. Okay, now as far as my position, I haven't added today. I did not sell today. I still own 33,500 shares of Rezolve at $4.11. That's where the current stock is at. That is a total value of $137,852. And I don't plan on selling the cheapest AI stock on this market. Like, that's just not in the cards for me. So we'll see when it turns around. Hopefully it's this week. Hopefully the government does get funded, and that's going to shape up to be a huge catalyst for the stock. So let me know your thoughts on this down below in the comment section. Hit the like button, as well as subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.